There was a fair bit of fodder for questions in those presentations. So does anyone like to start? There we are. We've got a question back middle there. Who's got that one?
Alec, if I could just ask you a question on your CapExes there. Have you got a hurdle that the Chinese impose on you you'd share with us?
Yes and no.
Yes, he has a hurdle. No, he's not sharing.
The hurdle is higher than our grower suppliers would like it to be, but not unreasonable in terms of what I'm used to, and I've spent all my career working for multinationals, not unreasonable and not unusual compared to what they're generally looking for on their investments.
That's about it. We've got a question.
Thank you. Hamish Bull, Quartermenta. Just a question for Michael and more an observation. Son of a mixed farmer, including rice, up in the Riverina. Basically with the decoupling of water from the land, especially during the drought in the mid-2000s, there was obviously a lot of farmers up there who sold their permanent water rights. And I know this year in the rice industry there's been a marked fall in production. And basically the issue was that the price was not achievable in terms of water, the temporary water market, so therefore meant production fell. And what that's ended up doing obviously is having a lot of agricultural land sitting around not doing a whole lot. I'm all for free markets, but I'm just trying to wonder the perfect balance and your comment on that, if there's anything that could be done in that aspect.
Thanks. I won't make too much of a statement. I'm a bit of a believer in economic rationalism, so I think that highlights where I sit. I think the point I'd like to make is, should we be producing on that land if it's uneconomic? And that's the whole argument around water will flow to its highest and best use. If you can only make $90 a meg out of that rice land, yet the tree croppers can make 3,000, should we be producing rice? And I mean, my view is fairly clear, but it is a bigger question. No, but I think we've got a number of other industries going through similar change. The car industry, for example, some of our manufacturers. Should agriculture be any different?
There's a fairly blunt challenge, isn't it? Mel?
Yeah, thanks, Mick. Michael, a bit of a related question for you. What's been the main constraint on your business so far? Is it water to buy or is it capital to buy it with?
Definitely capital. So we're getting strong interest, but it always takes time to parlay that interest into cash. So plenty of deals on offer to, I suppose, access water in a variety of forms, but capital's the constraint.
Just an observation to all three of you. At different stages through your presentation, all of you, I guess, hinted at the issue of culture. So in other words, the understanding and expectations of farmers and the ag sector versus the attitude of perhaps the investors, be they overseas, be they listed, be they through the stock exchange, or be they investors in the water market. How much effort has to go into managing that? Is that a constant thing, or do growers and producers gain an understanding of the different environment they're in and accommodate that?
It's constant. You know, so my perspective would be, regardless of whether we were a cooperative or a listed company, yep. In the lead up to listing, there was an enormous amount of time. And I don't mean in the months before when we started to put the documents on the table. I mean in the years before, as we got people to understand what the options were for the company and what a listing might look like and what it might mean. So there was a whole lot of transitioning work done, if you like, very subtly as we got our shareholders, or our farmer shareholders, ready for it. I would say post, you get the inevitable accusation, which I'm sure happens up at Tully, that you're different now, and you treat us differently and you're different. And the reality is, of course, you're different, but I would always argue, say, in a dairy perspective, that we see most failure around supplier-company relationships being a lack of understanding of what the supply chain actually looks like and how it works. So therefore, you stay very close to your suppliers because it's actually about understanding what their issues are, how you can actually contribute to those issues, and how you can actually fill their knowledge gaps. And that sounds a bit, it may be trite, but the reality is, you know, the best way to manage a supplier is to actually make sure they've got very good information about not only what's occurring in the marketplace, but what's occurring in your business. And the vast majority of them will then move forward. And it doesn't really matter what your structure is. That's really what you've got to address.
Yeah, well, culture occupies a lot of my time. I guess I've spent a lot of time with the shareholder, and it's very basic things. In China, farmers don't have ownership of their land. They don't have title to the land. And pretty much all of the pricing of cane and many other crops in China, there is government involvement. Our farmers do have title to the land, but there's very little government involvement in pricing of the commodity. So you've got to explain that to each new group managers that come through, and you've got to deal with a number of other things. I think the variability of production or the expectation of how one can manage production in Australia is quite different than in China, where certainly in the past, and I think it still exists to a degree, if someone says we need to produce so much of X, the record will show that pretty much it was produced. We had the unfortunate experience of having a cyclone come through this year late in the season. The only silver lining in that cloud was that one of our Beijing resident directors was there during the middle of it and actually saw us go into our operational planning for that, and had to change her flight from Cairns Airport, which was going to be closed. We told her days in advance it was going to be closed, to Townsville in order to be able to meet her next flight and so on. So it's funny how you deal with, or how you have opportunities to explain cultural and other differences. Barry's right. I mean, the relationship with our suppliers has changed fundamentally, and we need to spend a lot more time now, and arguably have needed to spend more time on it for some months, working on that part of our business.
Michael, have you got observations there? Do you run into the culture clash between here you're a nasty corporate coming to buy up all the water out of this valley and leave us sucked dry, versus the reality of people wanting to free up capital and be more flexible in their water entitlement use?
I've probably got a couple of perspectives, Mick, from previous roles where the corporates get blamed for a lot. But just digressing, my experience has been, I think it's probably matched by a few around here, is that the corporate's always blamed for pushing that price up. But my experience has been, we're never the highest bidder in the room. It's always a local farmer who's bidding that price. That's just an observation. On the water side, it's probably fortunate for us that the more innovative growers are leading the market. So they're dragging along that broader group of growers. So they're already doing it, when I say doing it, leasing water or selling water or trading water. So it's an easier, if you like, sell for us to say, look at the leading growers, they're doing well out of it, perhaps you can as well. I think they find us. We don't have to look too hard to find the opportunities acquiring water.
Okay. All right, we've got one question in the middle there. I think we're just about teased them all out.
Yeah, Malcolm Letts from Department of Ag Queensland. For Alec, you may want to pass on this question as well. The cultural differences between Wilmar and COFCO and their attitudes towards QSL.
Happy to talk about the cultural differences, but Wilmar is a trading company who invests in plantations and processing. COFCO and Wilmar is much more of a multinational and becoming more so, but they view themselves as a trading company and a fairly nimble trading company and a growing trading company. COFCO also would view itself as a trading company, but trade in, I think, the more traditional sense of moving goods in and around China and into China. As a general observation, you may ask the same question of Mitpol for that matter, but as a general observation, I don't think these companies spent hundreds of millions of dollars to not be able to get access to the flow of commodity coming out of them. So in the long run, you can see what the answer is.
Did we have a final question?
Yeah,
Yes.
Frank Delahunty again. To Barry, just wondering, your cooperative shareholders, how many stayed on? Your cooperative farmers, how many stayed on as shareholders?
So we're pretty even now. So we're about half traditional farmer shareholders and about half new investors, new shareholders. It eased down over a couple of years, and the reality is most of the behaviour has been and look, it wouldn't surprise you given the sorts of numbers that I put on the table. You can imagine every one of those farmers wandering into their investment advisor and they said, and most of them might have probably said, you're a bit heavy, you're a bit overweighted in Bega, because fundamentally a lot of them, the only share they owned was Bega, and something they had, a couple of $1 million worth. And so the reality is that what we've normally seen in their behaviour is they didn't exit, they just sold down a chunk for a variety of reasons. I mean, it facilitated a lot of succession in our experience.
Part B, have you got any institutions on your listing?
Yeah, we've got, we've had a few in and out, but we've got some really core loyal institutions that are, funnily enough, even when that share price went for a massive run and we had some raids on our register, a lot of the institutions stuck hard, so they proved to be as loyal as anybody else. But, I mean, I didn't touch on it earlier, but it is worth noting that it's interesting around farming, and one of the big challenges is succession. And one of the things that did happen in our business is when we released all that wealth, suddenly instead of having young farmers burdened with debt because mum and dad needed to take a heap of money out, mum and dad kept the shares, passed the farms on, and we got this very smooth, very nice succession as a side benefit.